Hey guys! Tonight we start with something a bit more akin to lacing up ancient work boots than donning shining armor. A day in the life of a great wall laborer at first light, when your muscles are still half asleep and the horizon glows like molten gold. You're standing among hundreds of fellow workers in a dewy clearing, the mist curling around pine trunks, as a distant drum summons you to muster. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to post your location and local time in the comments so we can compare sunrise moments around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink against the chill air as the drumbeat settles into a steady thump, echoing off low hills peppered with squat watchtowers. Your feet sink into the damp earth, and you inhale a blend of pine resin and fresh sweat. Around you, silhouettes rise, some stooped with age, others lithe like mountain goats, and each one grips a simple wooden yoke. It's just past first light, when the sky carries that pale promise of warmth, though your shoulders already ache from yesterday's labor. In this narrow valley, you're one of tens of thousands conscripted by the Qin successor states and later by the Han emperors, over 300,000 strong in some campaigns, to build, maintain, or repair this ever-extending ribbon of stone and rammed earth. The drum stops, and a hush falls. You shift the yoke higher on your back, feeling the wood press into your collarbones. Ahead, seasoned overseers in coarse linen robes nod curtly, their bronze whistles hung from braided cords. They might be soldiers repurposed for construction, or veteran labor supervisors passed down through generations. Historians still argue whether these morning drills began as military practice or labor tradition. Either way, you obey the signal, stepping forward as the line moves, each footfall releasing tiny clouds of reddish dust that swirl in the soft glow. As you approach the wall's base, you notice how the stones here are larger than those near the watchtowers, quarried from a site half a day's march away. You recall that in the Ming era, engineers perfected the art of river-laid bricks, firing them at precise temperatures so they'd endure centuries. But right now, you're still in the Qin-style trenches, where naturally flat slabs of limestone get rammed with clay and straw. You brace yourself against the stone's rough flank, lifting it with a grunt, every sinew singing its protest. Your breathing steadies into a slow rhythm: inhale, lift, exhale, set down. The morning sun edges higher, gilding the rising wall and slicing through the mist. You feel the pulse of that drum still echo in your chest, a heartbeat guiding the collective effort. Sweat drips from your brow, warming the chill air where your breath forms little clouds. A few workers nearby hum a simple tune, maybe an old folk song about the rivers of home, its melody lilting against the harsh clinks of stone on stone. By the third round, you're moving with the flow. You sense the weight of history in each block, the idea that future travelers and patrolling soldiers will tread upon your toil. Yet in this moment, you're too focused on not dropping the slab, too attuned to the rasp of rope against wood as ushers guide the next carrier into position. Somewhere on the wall, a beacon light smolders, its faint smoke drifting lazily above the ridge, hinting at the communication systems waiting at the day's end. Your mind drifts to the families you left behind in the nearby village, your mother kneading dough in the courtyard, your younger brother chasing chickens in the dirt yard. You wonder if they've already broken their fast, sipping hot millet porridge while picturing your broad shoulders and sun-scorched face. These thoughts tether you to home, providing a quiet comfort amid the chorus of grinding stones and distant whistles. With each slab you haul, the sun climbs higher, and the wall's profile unfolds, a jagged spine weaving through forested hills, pale stones gleaming against green pines. You realize that this isn't just a barrier, it's a living monument to countless laborers like you, whose names will vanish but whose sweat and song will linger in the stones. And yet, as you step back into line for another load, you catch yourself smiling at the absurdity of feeling proud, even when your back protests. The stone presses against your shoulder again, same yoke, different block. You shuffle forward in the early sun, toes scuffing packed soil as the procession winds around the base of the latest segment of wall. The limestone is dry and dusty, catching on your tunic and leaving pale streaks across your chest like ghostly handprints. Already, the air is warming, and with it, the effort begins to feel heavier. You brace yourself for the uphill stretch, your least favorite part, and begin the long, slow climb. The incline is steady but relentless. Someone ahead groans softly, adjusting their grip, while another stumbles for a second before finding footing. A watchtower looms above, its square silhouette stubborn against the deepening blue sky. Birds circle lazily overhead, unfazed by the labor below. You envy them, for a fleeting moment, their wings, their distance from all this heavy lifting. But then your sandal catches on a rock and you're yanked back into the reality of weight and balance. This is the grunt work of empire. You're not shaping history with ink or steel, no, you're sweating it into existence with every hauled block. This is what they don't show on scrolls. There's no poetry in this part, just a kind of quiet discipline and shared discomfort. You glance to your left and meet eyes with a fellow hauler. He grins through gritted teeth, and you both nod, a wordless agreement that yeah, this is miserable. But it's ours. You crest the hill with burning thighs and release your block with a careful thud. The relief is brief. Overseers signal again, this time toward the ramps where newly delivered stones are being lifted further up the wall's crest. You're reassigned, no rest, just a change in scenery. Now you're grabbing a thick rope, its fibers coarse and warm from sun exposure. You and 5 others tug in sync, pulling the heavy slab up a makeshift ramp of logs and gravel. The logs shift slightly, and your heart jumps, but then they settle again, creaking under the weight. One of the men starts chanting, a low, repetitive line in a dialect not your own, but you fall into rhythm. Tug. Step. Tug. Step. The wall rises behind you, brick by brick. You pause once the stone's in place, catching your breath near the scaffold base. From here, the wall's curvature is more obvious. It snakes like a lazy dragon along the mountain ridge, tapering off into the horizon. You can just make out another crew in the distance. Their silhouettes ant-like against the skyline. The sheer scale is overwhelming, even from the inside. A sudden breeze flutters through the pine branches, and the scent of crushed wild herbs wafts in. Someone nearby mutters that a storm might be coming later. It smells like one. You hope not. Hauling stone in dry heat is brutal, yes, but better than doing it ankle-deep in mud. Still, the breeze is a gift for now. You tip your head back and let it hit your face, eyes closed, just for a second, then it's back to work. This time, you're tasked with adjusting smaller stones along the wall's edge. It's finer work, more precise. You squat beside a half-laid row and begin shifting blocks into alignment, making sure they sit flush. No one wants to be the reason a patrolman trips in the dark or a cart jostles off course. You pat the stones gently, almost like reassuring a nervous animal. They'll hold. They have to. Over your shoulder, a supervisor calls out measurements. You adjust. Again. And again. The work becomes hypnotic. Place, shift, align, pat, repeat. You lose track of time. The world narrows to stone and sun and the quiet breathing of those around you. Occasionally, a swallow dips down and chirps before darting away. A child's voice echoes faintly from the valley below, probably playing near one of the grain carts. It's somewhere around the third small stone that you start to feel it, the ache behind your knees, the tightness in your lower back, the early warnings that you'll sleep like a log tonight. Not that you wouldn't anyway. Most of you sleep the second your head hits a mat. But still, the soreness is a kind of badge. A dull reminder that your body has done something real. As the sun moves higher, shadows shorten. Someone nearby wipes sweat from his eyes with a cloth that used to be white. A few workers call for water. A pair of donkeys trudge up the path carrying fresh baskets of tools, their bells jingling in lazy rhythm. You think about the next part of the day, mortar mixing. Sticky work. Messy. But at least it means standing in one place. Just as you're getting ready to move on, you spot a carving scratched into the side of a stone. It's crude, barely visible, but unmistakably there, a pair of stick figure shapes and what looks like a sun. Maybe someone's children. Maybe someone's hometown emblem. You run your fingers over the groove and smile. Even here, in all this grueling sameness, people leave their mark. The call to shift duties comes again, and you rise, joints cracking like dry twigs. The stone is behind you now, but the day is far from done. Time to coat your hands in dust and clay and get elbow deep in the next messy phase. You take one last glance at the horizon, where the wall undulates like a sleeping serpent. Then you step forward, again. You make your way downhill toward the mixing pits, the ground here more churned, almost slippery in spots where spilled water has darkened the soil. A few workers are already crouched beside wide basins, their hands slick with clay and lime, sleeves rolled to the elbow. You join them with a quiet sigh, stretching out your fingers before plunging them into the cool, sticky mixture. This is the part of the wall no one ever writes poetry about, mortar. The glue of empires. Not exactly glamorous, but vital. Without it, every stone you just hauled would crumble apart at the first strong gust or marching foot. The mixture today is a familiar blend: powdered lime, yellow clay, and rice paste. You mash it together with a smooth river stone, circling it through the mixture like stirring a pot of very determined porridge. The consistency is key. Too dry, and it cracks. Too wet, and it runs off the stone like soup. You scoop and pat, occasionally flicking a bit of grit from your knuckles. It's quiet work, rhythmic, almost meditative, if your knees weren't screaming from the squat. The older workers hum again, low and unhurried. One of them starts reciting lines from a village tale, something about a fox spirit and a lost sandal. You don't know the full story, but you've heard the tune a dozen times. It loops gently as the sun tilts higher. This mortar, thick and earthy, contains crushed seashells and egg whites when available, although the latter is usually saved for high-profile sections near inspection routes. Where you're working, function over form. No visiting emperor will stroll this stretch. Just patrols, supply carriers, and the occasional goat. The smell of the mortar is oddly familiar, like damp caves and steamed rice. It clings to everything: your skin, your nails, the folds of your tunic. Some say it never really washes out, even after months away from the wall. They call it the mason scent, like a badge of endurance. Every so often, someone pours in fresh water, and a little cloud of clay dust rises up like incense. It settles in your eyebrows. You blink slowly. This is the part of the day when time begins to soften at the edges. It could be mid-morning, or nearly noon. Your hands move automatically now: scoop, spread, scrape, smooth. The line of stones is growing, and soon another team will arrive to set new blocks on top of your careful work. You glance over and see a young boy, probably no older than 13, kneading a batch of mortar with his whole forearm. He's got the skinny wrists of someone who should be fishing or herding, but here he is, same as you. You offer him a nod. He offers one back. Then wipes his nose with a sleeve and goes back to work. Your own hands are coated now in a glove of gritty paste. You press it along the base of a stone, smoothing it with your thumb. You imagine how the sun will bake it dry, hardening it like old leather. 1,000 years from now, maybe someone will walk this wall and pause at this very stone. They'll never know it was your thumb that smoothed it. And that's okay, the overseer makes his rounds, arms crossed behind his back. He squints, occasionally kneels, nods, and moves on. No shouts. That's good. You don't want to be noticed during mortar duty. It's the sort of task that's best done invisibly, efficiently, and without commentary. You blend into the wall as much as the mortar does. After what feels like an hour, you stand up and stretch, your knees complaining loudly. A warm breeze carries the faintest scent of millet roasting. Someone's preparing the midday meal nearby. Your stomach growls in reply, and you exchange hopeful glances with a few others. Break must be coming soon. But before you can dream of tea or dumplings, one last batch needs finishing. The basin's nearly empty now, and you scrape the bottom for the final lumps. As you do, your fingers brush something hard, not a stone, but a shell. A scallop, maybe. It reminds you that much of this mortar's magic comes from things long dead, shells ground into dust, trees turned to ash, even the bones of forgotten meals. You rinse your hands in a nearby bucket, the water cloudy and cool. It feels good, even if it only removes the top layer of grime. Someone nearby jokes that the wall's true secret ingredient is calloused hands and missed lunches. You chuckle softly. He's not wrong, then, from up the hill. A clear whistle pierces the air. It's not urgent, but it's firm. Meal break. You rise with a grateful grunt and walk back toward the camp courtyard, the sticky scent of mortar slowly replaced by the richer smells of tea, steamed grains, and faint traces of ginger. Behind you, the basins sit half-filled and still, basking in the quiet sun like sleepy mouths waiting to be fed again. You shuffle toward the courtyard, hips tight from crouching, fingers still faintly tingling from the mortar's grip. Around you, workers stretch, roll their shoulders, or slap each other on the back in lazy celebration of reaching the midday pause. There's no bell, no official ceremony, just a quiet exhale, the collective body of a labor force easing itself into something softer for a while. The food queue is already forming near a canvas-covered wagon that smells like boiled millet and pickled greens. You grab your bowl, wooden, worn smooth over the years, and find your place near the back of the line. It's not a fast-moving operation, but no one complains. Slowness, here, is not an inconvenience. It's a form of rest. Steam curls upward from the ladles. When your turn comes, an older woman with soot on her cheek plops a generous scoop of porridge into your bowl. She adds a drizzle of chili oil without being asked. You nod your thanks. She doesn't smile, but her eyes crinkle just a little. There's no dining hall, of course. You find a patch of stone that's mostly shaded, near a low wall with some ivy creeping along the edges. It's not comfortable, but then, not much here is. You sit cross-legged and balance the bowl on your knees. The first bite is hotter than expected, and you make that little history or teeth noise as you chew. The porridge tastes exactly how you remember, earthy. A little bland, with occasional bursts of surprise from a fermented bean or tiny sliver of ginger root. It's not gourmet, but it fills you. And for now, that's all it needs to do. Nearby, two men argue over who snored louder last night. One of them insists it wasn't snoring but heroic breathing. Another claims he heard wild dogs at the edge of camp, and now no one can agree if it was dogs, foxes, or a drunk guard singing off-key. You listen with half a smile, too tired to join in but comforted by the familiar rhythm of tired men teasing each other to stay human. You stretch your legs and lean back on your elbows. The sun filters through some thin clouds now, its heat a little more bearable. You let your eyes drift shut, just for a moment, not quite asleep but farther from awake. Around you, the noises blur into a warm drone, clinking bowls, low murmurs, the soft thud of someone adjusting their boots, a child runs by, probably the cook's youngest, chasing a feather or a beetle, you can't quite tell. You remember when your knees bent that easily. Now they creak like doors in old temples. Still, you chuckle. Even here, atop some remote ridge of China's mountainous spine, children play like children always do. Your break is short, but sacred. You polish off the last of your porridge, tipping the bowl to catch every bit. A few drops run down your chin. You wipe them away with the back of your hand and set the bowl aside. There's no nap, no stretching out under a tree with a book like in the stories. Rest here means not moving for a few heartbeats longer than usual. Then it's time. You rinse your bowl in a communal bucket, the water tepid and cloudy with starch. No one seems to mind. You dry it on the edge of your tunic and slip it into your satchel. The murmurs grow quieter as people begin to stand. There's no whistle this time, just an instinctual sense that the pause has expired. You return to the work site, limbs looser but brain a bit foggy. Food does that. It tugs at your focus, makes your body feel like it wants to lie down and digest in peace. But peace is for emperors. You're just a wall worker. The afternoon sun glares down like it's grown angrier over lunch. Even the clouds retreat. You squint and shade your face with your hand as you reach the next staging area. This one is all about hauling again, with this time, for scaffolds and support beams. It's a different kind of strain. Less brute weight, more awkward size and endless splinters. You hoist a beam with two others and start the walk up a narrow dirt track that feels like it was designed by someone with a grudge. The beam digs into your shoulder. One of the men starts singing, again. Different tune now, more upbeat. Something about a stork and a fishing basket. You hum along, not quite on key, but no one cares. The track winds past a sentry post. A soldier leans on his spear, half asleep in the shade, armor unbuckled at the side. He nods as you pass, not unkindly. You wonder how long he's been there. Longer than you, probably. He's got that 1,000-yard stare like he's seen more boring days than he can count. At the top, you deposit the beam with a grunt and turn to descend. Another trip. Maybe two. No one says how many, exactly. You just keep going until someone tells you to stop or the sun disappears. You pass a crew assembling scaffolding, wooden poles, lashed with coarse rope, stretching upward like a forest skeleton. One man tightens knots with such care it looks almost like embroidery. Another, older, uses his foot to check for sturdiness. It's not elegant, but it works. A soft breeze lifts dust into the air again. This time it smells like pine sap and charcoal. Someone's lit a small cooking fire for tea, its smoke rising in lazy spirals. You breathe it in and try not to think about how many more beams are left. Eventually, your arms start to feel like sacks of rice. Heavy. Dull. Still, you keep moving. Because this isn't the kind of job where you pace yourself. You just exist in motion until the motion ends. As you reach the beam pile again, your shadow is shorter than before. A small mercy. The heat may be peaking now, which means the next hour might drift by more slowly. Thick with sweat and sun, you pick up another beam. Your hands are beginning to toughen, blistered skin giving way to callus. You feel it as you adjust your grip. Less pain now. Just pressure, and off you go, up the hill again. The fifth beam you carry feels heavier than the rest, though it's probably the same weight. That's what fatigue does. It whispers lies in your ears. Makes the slope look steeper, the wood denser, the sun crueler. But you still walk. Because walking is easier than explaining why you've stopped. As you reach the top again, the scaffolding has grown higher. One of the workers is perched on the third tier, threading rope with a speed that borders on magic. You think about how many beams it took just to get this far. The wall might be stone, but it stands on the backs of trees too, entire forests reduced to scaffolds, ramps, tools, firewood. You wonder, not for the first time, if any tree truly dies old anymore. Someone yells from below. Not an alarm, just irritation. A plank has cracked. Not enough to break, but enough to inspire caution. You walk over to inspect it. The grain split in two directions, like a forked tongue. Another worker shrugs and begins lashing a reinforcing pole beneath it. You give him a nod and step back. Then, out of nowhere, the stillness breaks. A horse approaches, its hooves muffled by dust but unmistakable in their rhythm. You turn your head just in time to see a soldier dismount. He's not a regular garrison man, you can tell by the embroidery on his cuffs. A courier, probably, or a junior inspector. He has the clean-shaven face of someone who doesn't build things. Only reports on them. He barks a few questions at the foreman, who answers in clipped tones. The rest of you pause in your work, not officially, but because you're curious. Not that you can actually hear what's being said. It's more about the tone. The inspector waves a hand toward the horizon, the direction of the Mongol steppe. The foreman folds his arms, glances skyward. You return to your work, pretending you weren't watching. You've learned over time that official interest is rarely good news for the ones doing the lifting. At best, it means a longer workday. At worst, someone's being conscripted for something urgent. You keep your head down. As you slide another beam into place, the breeze picks up again, just enough to make the scaffolding creak slightly. You listen for a moment. Timber groans, rope whispers, stone settles. Everything here speaks in tired syllables. Then, your mind drifts to something the older workers sometimes joke about during breaks. The ghosts of the wall. They don't mean it in a spooky way. It's more a shrugging acknowledgement. Some say the wall has taken more lives than it's saved. Others say that's what makes it so strong. You build it with bricks, one grizzled stonemason muttered once, but it holds because of all the people who stayed inside it forever. Historians still argue whether the Great Wall's death toll was in the thousands or the tens of thousands. Some sources hint that bodies were buried within the foundation itself, especially during the early Ming expansions. Others say that's just legend, a cautionary tale passed down to keep laborers in line. Either way, when you touch the stone, you do sometimes feel something. Not ghosts exactly, but a heaviness. Like memory baked into the rock. Like the wall is watching back, you shake off the thought. By mid-afternoon, the work shifts again. You're assigned to help raise one of the scaffold towers another level. This means hauling a bucket of tools, mallets, chisels, clamps, up a rickety side ladder that groans with every step. You hate this part. You're not scared of heights, exactly, but there's a difference between standing on a hill and balancing on a stack of bound logs 3 stories up. You keep your eyes forward. Don't look down. Just keep moving. The view from the top, though, is oddly beautiful. The wall snakes along the ridgeline like a dragon lounging on a mountain. In the distance, you can see valleys dotted with pine, the roofs of distant farms, and even the shimmer of a river. It feels like you're standing in a painting. If it weren't for the sweat pooling at the base of your spine, you might enjoy it more. You pass the bucket to the lead scaffold worker, who thanks you with a grunt. His beard is full of sawdust. You descend slowly, palms sweating more now than during any mortar work. When your feet touch solid ground again, you exhale through your nose and stretch your back. Break time is called again, not a long one. Just enough to gulp some water and chew on a strip of dried radish. You find shade beneath a cart and close your eyes for 30 seconds. Your whole body hums with that strange mix of exhaustion and alertness. like you could fall asleep or sprint, depending on what was asked of you. When the break ends, you return to carrying stone. Not the fresh quarried blocks, but fragments, slabs too irregular for walls but perfect for paving the patrol paths. These are laid between the walls' crenellations, so guards don't slip in rain or mud. It's considered less prestigious work than hauling blocks, but easier on the back. You're secretly grateful. The sun begins to shift now, lowering in the sky. The shadows stretch longer across the ridge. You can feel the light changing, less harsh, more golden. You allow yourself a brief fantasy, finishing the day, washing your hands in cool river water, maybe even having a second bowl of soup, and then, someone near you hums the stork song again, the one from earlier. You hum along, because if you don't, the wall hums instead. And she hums in a much deeper key. The light is beginning to turn syrupy, slanting across the stonework in long amber fingers. That golden hour everyone romanticizes from the comfort of their warm beds back home. It's here now, but it doesn't mean your work is done. It just makes your sweat glisten more photogenically. Not that anyone's painting you today, you're sent to help with repairs on a section of the wall's parapet. This part was damaged in last week's rainstorm. Stones shifted, mud slipped, and someone twisted an ankle trying to cross it. You climb the slope to the spot with two others, one carrying a basket of tools, the other humming quietly and chewing on a sprig of fennel like it's his whole personality. The parapet itself is uneven here. You kneel and start shifting loose stones, setting them aside with care. There's a rhythm to it: lift, inspect, place. Over and over. You fall into it easily, the way you might fall into a trance if you were the sort of person who meditated. Which you're not. You build. That's your rhythm. Your hands grow gritty again, fingers tracing the edges of stones, looking for hairline cracks. You pause now and then to stretch your wrists. It's the kind of motion you could do with your eyes closed, and maybe you do, for a second, when the wind moves just right and the sun slides behind a cloud. The man beside you tells a story as he works. Something about a cousin who saw a white fox and took it as a sign to gamble all his rice money. Lost it all in one throw, he says, laughing softly. But he claimed it was still a lucky fox, just misunderstood. You smirk, pressing a slab into place. You've never seen a white fox, but you believe in misunderstood luck. Below, the valley deepens into shadow. A shepherd leads goats along a footpath, the animals moving like a single woolly ribbon. You can hear the soft jingling of their bells, faint, almost musical. That kind of sound makes the place feel older than the empire itself. Like the mountains would keep echoing, long after you're gone. You reach into the tool basket for a chisel, brushing aside a chunk of broken slate. Someone's etched a name into the side of it. Not yours. Someone from before. You run your thumb over the groove, then set it gently on the wall's edge. By now, the repaired parapet looks more or less right. Not perfect, but nothing here is. A foreman comes by to inspect the work. He doesn't say much, just nods once and moves on. That's high praise. In Great Wall terms. With repairs done, you and the others walk the length of the finished path to check for loose spots. Each step is deliberate. You scan the stones, but also the sky. The sun is dipping lower, fast now, like it's slipping rather than setting. Soon, the call will come to pack up, but not yet. There's always one more task. You're sent to help stack stones for the next morning's foundation work. These ones are freshly cut, brought in by a team of haulers from the foot of the mountain. They're warm to the touch from the day's heat, their surfaces chalky and pale. You make a small game of it, sorting them by size. Imagining you're assembling a puzzle. There's no real need to, but it helps the time pass. One stone is oddly pinkish. Another smells faintly of lichen. You don't question it. Every stone is someone else's problem until it becomes yours. By now, your body is aching in that familiar, low-key way, the ache that doesn't scream, just murmurs constantly like a disgruntled neighbor. Your shoulders throb. Your knees feel like sacks of cooked grain. But you don't stop. Someone nearby sings a lullaby under their breath. You don't know the words, but the melody is slow and sloping. It reminds you of nights back home, when your grandmother would grind sesame seeds by moonlight and hum like it was her secret way of keeping time. You check the sky again. The clouds are turning copper now, the first stars flirting with the idea of being seen. It's almost time. A bell clangs, not the loud, shrill kind, but the flat, dull one that signals the end of the shift. No one cheers. They just shift direction. Tools are set down, basket stacked, sweat wiped from brows with the back of dirty sleeves. You walk slowly down the hill toward the edge of camp. The wall towers behind you. Part shadow, part monument. Up close, it's not majestic, it's dusty and chipped, full of spider webs and foot scuffs. But from a few paces back, it starts to become that postcard image again. Strange how something can be so ugly from up close and so grand from a distance. Your evening isn't quite your own yet. You still need to clean up, eat again, maybe soak your hands if the bucket water isn't too warm. But you've made it through the day. That counts. You reach your bunk, a woven mat inside a sloped tent that flaps gently in the mountain breeze. Someone's already laid out a cooking fire nearby. You can smell cabbage and vinegar and something else unidentifiable but edible. You sit. Finally. Your knees crack like twigs. Someone tosses you a cup of warm water, and you nod your thanks. The fennel chewer sits beside you and sighs long and dramatically, like a stage actor. Only 100 more years of this, he mutters. You both laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's exactly true, and just like that, the night begins. You stretch out your legs, letting the evening air cool the fire still trapped in your clothes. The warmth of the cup in your hands is already fading, the steam curling up toward the stars like it's trying to escape. You breathe it in anyway. Tastes faintly of wood smoke and clay mud. Still better than the dust you've been inhaling all day. Around you, the camp eases into its nightly rituals. A few men sharpen tools under torchlight, the rasp of metal on stone forming a kind of sleepy percussion. Someone is mending a sandal strap by the fire, threading it with a needle thicker than your pinky. A cluster of younger workers plays a slow-paced game with flat stones, tossing and catching with impressive laziness. You've never figured out the rules. Dinner comes late and soft, just as it always does. Stewed greens, maybe mustard leaves, and a porridge that tastes like it was cooked 3 times too long. You eat all of it. Every scrap. You never used to finish your meals back home. But here, hunger has manners. It doesn't yell. It just waits patiently, confident it'll win. After the food, you clean your bowl with a torn-off bit of bun. The others do the same, swiping the sides clean and popping the remnants into their mouths without a word. No one wastes. Even crumbs carry the weight of labor. You don't get a lot of talk during dinner, just murmurs, tired chuckles, and the occasional belch that someone is too weary to apologize for. No one takes offense. Here, exhaustion is the language you all speak fluently. As the moon rises, you're called for a short night watch. Not because anyone thinks bandits will strike tonight, just routine. The kind of just-in-case precaution that keeps emperors calm. You trudge up to the nearest lookout post, the stone cool under your sandals, and take your place next to the man already there. He nods but says nothing. Just hands you a small lantern and leans back against the wall. You can hear his breathing shift as he dozes upright, hands tucked into his sleeves. You envy that ability. You, on the other hand, stay awake. Mostly because it's your job, partly because the view is hypnotic. Below, the land is painted in shades of indigo. The valleys, ridges, and distant farms all wrapped in silence. The only sound is the wind threading through the crenellations of the wall. Like a flute played by a ghost with nowhere else to be, the stars come out in full, scattered and precise. You think about the men who built this very outpost centuries before you. What constellations they saw. What they wished for. Probably the same things you do: shelter, warm food, a day without pain. Maybe a return home that isn't years away. You run a hand along the parapet beside you. Someone carved a tiny fish into the mortar. Not the first doodle you found, not the last. You wonder who carved it. Someone missing the sea? Or maybe just bored. A low whistle comes from the next post over. Just a signal, nothing alarming. Probably someone needing a replacement. You answer with a double click of your tongue, the agreed upon code for all quiet here. You're not supposed to talk during night watch, but those little signals, tongue clicks, hand taps, form a strange vocabulary of their own. Time passes like syrup on cold stone, slow, reluctant. Your knees stiffen from standing, so you shift your weight to one leg, then the other. The man beside you snores once and startles himself awake, blinking blearily before giving you a sheepish smile. You say nothing. You've done the same. Eventually, your watch ends. You descend the slope with care, mindful of the loose stones and the night's chill. Every muscle is slower now, like someone's replaced your bones with wet sandbags. The camp is mostly asleep, just a few flickering flames left in the cook pit and one man quietly muttering to himself in a dream. You reach your mat. Unroll it with ceremony. Slide into the blanket like a letter going into an envelope. The ground is hard, the pillow is barely stuffed, and yet, your eyes close before your head fully rests, and still, the wall does not sleep, its stones hold warmth long after the fire has gone out. Its watchtowers blink quietly in the dark. The ramparts carry echoes of footsteps that haven't walked them in decades. You imagine them, those echoes, shoes made of straw, leather creaking, quiet voices asking for a moment of rest. You dream, but it's not a normal dream. It's half memory, half hallucination. In it, you're still walking the wall, but it's older than you remember. The stones are cracked open like melon rinds, trees growing up through the gaps. The clouds hang so low you can touch them, and someone is calling your name, only it's not your name. It's a name that belongs to a man who lived 500 years ago, and just as you reach the tower at the dream's edge, the whole wall breathes in once. Deep and slow. And then, so do you. You wake before dawn, which is a cruel kind of miracle. No rooster crowed, no bell rang. Just your body deciding, on its own, that it has had enough lying down on packed dirt and threadbare matting. You open your eyes to darkness, but not the pure black of night. This is the ashy blue that hints at morning. It's quieter than sleep itself, your joints crack as you sit up. Not dramatically, just enough to remind you that nothing about you is new. Around you, the camp is beginning its own slow stirrings. A pot clangs somewhere. Someone coughs, a deep, gravelly bark that might be more habit than illness. The fire has been stoked. Smoke curls lazily up into the crisp air. You splash your face with water from the common basin. It's cold. Your skin flinches. You dry it with your sleeve, which is still faintly crusted with dust from yesterday's stone hauling. You consider brushing it off but decide against it. That dust is the local currency. Everyone here wears it. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a wedge of millet bun and a cup of hot broth. The bun is dry enough to build with, and the broth tastes mostly like boiled spoon. But it's warm, and your hands are grateful for that alone. You eat without speaking. So does everyone else. Morning is a sacred time, not for meditation, but for conserving words. Today's task comes from a runner, barely older than a boy, who announces it in short, breathless bursts. There's been a collapse on the far ridge. A load of timber gave way. No one died, probably, but work stalled until it's cleared. You and a team are assigned to help rebuild the staging platform. You pack your tools and follow the group out of camp. The sun is barely above the horizon, casting everything in that surreal gold-pink haze. It's almost pretty. Almost. If you squint. The trail to the ridge is steep, winding through scrub and crumbling shale. You keep your eyes down, watching each step, because twisting your ankle here isn't dramatic, it's just inconvenient. No one will carry you back. When you reach the site, it's exactly as described, a tangle of splintered wood, half-buried ropes, and the kind of silence that follows a bad surprise. One of the younger workers is already trying to lift a beam far too heavy for him. You walk over and nudge him aside with a nod. It takes 3 of you to shift it. The beam groans, then gives way with a dusty sigh. You start sorting usable planks from ruined ones. A rhythm emerges again: lift, toss, pause, repeat. One plank has a small bird's nest tucked into a hollow. Abandoned, but still whole. You set it gently aside, as if that one small intact thing deserves a second chance. As you work, you glance up at the wall segment nearby. It's raw, partially built, like someone froze time halfway through. The stones sit in lopsided stacks, some balanced like they're afraid of commitment. Mortar is smeared in lazy streaks. It reminds you of a cake someone tried to frost with a sword. Still, it holds. Somehow. Which is what you all do, really. Someone cracks a joke about how the emperor should try hauling beams for a day. Another says, he couldn't even carry his own hat. Laughter spreads in small ripples. It's quiet laughter, but it's the real kind. The kind you feel behind your eyes. The breeze picks up as the sun climbs. You tie a cloth around your forehead to catch the sweat. It's one of those days where the heat doesn't shout, it just presses. Like a hand on your back that never lets up. As you finish clearing the wreckage, the foreman signals for a new round of timber to be raised. You help guide the ropes as the logs are hauled up the slope. Your palms burn against the fibers. The rope is old. Splinters work their way in, and you keep going anyway. The staging platform begins to take shape again. You wedge support beams into notches carved days earlier. You test the joints by leaning your full weight against them. It's crude, but reliable. If it holds you, it'll hold the next stack of bricks. By midday, your clothes are soaked through again. You sit on a stump and pull off your shoes, letting your feet breathe. They look like 2 overboiled turnips. Someone hands you a slice of radish. You nod your thanks and crunch it slowly. It tastes like pepper and cold earth. You pretend it's refreshing. For a few moments, you just sit there, looking out at the wall winding away into the mountains. It doesn't shimmer or gleam or do anything cinematic. It just stretches. Patient. Relentless. Like a thought that refuses to end, you feel the weight of it, not just in the stones, but in the silence. The Great Wall isn't loud. It's steady. It doesn't need to impress you. It knows what it is. You, meanwhile, are just passing through. When the break ends, you're back on your feet. There's a gap in the support column that needs filling. You pick through a pile of off-cut beams until one fits like it was waiting for this all along. You hammer it into place with a flat stone. The sound is hollow and satisfying. The day moves on, pulling you with it. You lose track of the hours. The light changes slowly, and your shadow shifts like it's trying to slink away unnoticed. And through it all, you work. Because that's what the wall demands. Not brilliance. Just persistence. One more plank. One more stone. One more breath. The sun dips behind a nearby ridge, casting the construction site in long, sleepy shadows. You squint upward, but the light's already gone golden and forgiving. The foreman finally calls it, arms raised, voice low, not because of reverence, just because everyone's too tired to be yelled at. The platform is rebuilt, or at least serviceable. It leans a little, like everything here does, but it'll hold. Probably, you trudge back toward camp in a slow, foot-shuffling procession. No one talks. There's a shared understanding that words are extra weight now, and no one's carrying more than they have to. Your steps sound like dry brushing on old leather, rhythmic and dusty, back in camp. You pass the water trough. It's muddy, full of leaves, and still the most beautiful thing you've seen all day. You kneel and splash your face. Some of it gets in your mouth. It tastes faintly of copper and moss. Still, cold is cold, and your body is grateful in its quiet, secret ways. Dinner arrives again. Another round of gruel and pickled greens. The vinegar in the pickles almost wakes you up, just for a second. Then the sleepiness folds back over you like a wet wool blanket. You eat, and your mind drifts, someone sits beside you. You don't look up. You know who it is by the way they settle, one knee first, then the elbow, like someone assembling furniture from memory. It's the brick cutter. The one with the crooked smile and the eyebrows that always look surprised. He starts talking, soft, slow, but you only catch half of it. He's telling a story about a man he once worked beside, who could carry 3 stones at once. Everyone thought it was a trick, or he had hollow bricks. But no. Just a wide back and a broken understanding of limits. He walked like a god, your friend says. But smelled like a corpse. You laugh. Quietly. Which is enough. The conversation drifts to other legends. The worker who once fell asleep standing up. The one who used to sing to bricks to find the best fit. The man who carved his name into every stone he laid. Most are probably lies. That doesn't matter. Lies are allowed to rest here. They've earned it. Eventually, someone pulls out a reed flute. It's a thin sound, barely there. Like music trying not to wake anyone. A few men hum along, not really on pitch, but no one's keeping score. The night around you grows thicker, cooler. Smoke winds upward from the cooking fire, blurring the stars like they're being smudged by the edge of a dream. Your muscles throb. Not in the urgent, alarming way, just a background chorus of protest. Everything from your shoulders to your heels sings a low song of effort. You stretch, slowly, like a cat that's also deeply unsure about life choices. Then comes the evening sweep. Not a broom, not a ritual, just a habit. You and a few others do a slow check of the immediate wall segments. It's a kind of walkthrough, making sure nothing's cracked or shifted too far. You hold a torch and tap the stones with a small mallet, listening for echoes. Hollow means trouble. Solid means sleep. You hear one hollow spot, near the southeast corner. You tap it again, and your companion leans in. Air pocket, he mutters. Or ghosts. You both nod like that's a reasonable spectrum. You mark it with chalk. Someone will fill it tomorrow. Maybe you. Maybe not. The sweep ends where the wall meets the rock face. Here, the masonry blends almost perfectly into the cliff, like the mountain decided to help. You run your fingers along the seam. The stone is cold. impossibly old. You wonder what this spot looked like before a single brick was placed. Just wind and wild goats, maybe. And now, thousands of pounds of tired ambition. You turn back toward camp, the torch crackling softly in your hand. The sky is a deep violet now, stars fully committed. You recognize a few, the ox, the archer, maybe the magpie bridge. Someone back home once told you that the stars are ancestors, watching. You hope they're amused. At your sleeping mat, you peel off your outer layer. The fabric sighs as it leaves your shoulders. You lie down again, the same position as last night, and the night before, and the night before that. There's comfort in repetition. It wears a groove into time, your mind flickers through the day. The timber, the flute, the crooked stone, the ghost hollow. None of it quite fits together, but it doesn't have to. It's a rhythm more than a story. And you've become good at following rhythms. You hear footsteps nearby. Just one of the others heading to relieve a night watchman. You don't open your eyes. Let the wall keep its secrets. You've learned enough for one day. As you drift, you remember something the cook said once, while chopping radish in the rain. The wall never asks why. It just wants the next stone. And somehow, that makes it easier to fall asleep. The night slides by like a quiet river. No dreams you remember. Just the feeling of being weightless for a while. No stones, no ropes, no aching soles. When you wake, it's from the smell of smoke and the whisper of early footsteps. Someone's already feeding the fire. You sit up slowly, stretch until your spine protests, then rise to meet another day you didn't ask for, but have accepted. All the same, you pull on your tunic. It's stiff with dried sweat, but familiar. That counts for something. Outside your tent, a few others are already chewing their breakfast buns, still too tired to pretend to enjoy them. You nod to one or two. They nod back. No one says good morning. That phrase doesn't belong here. Today, you're assigned to stone transport. A cart's broken an axle half a lead down the slope, and it's your job, along with 3 others, to carry the stones manually the rest of the way. No one even pretends this will be pleasant. You just set off, one foot after another. The morning sun is bright and unsympathetic. The stones are squared, quarried days ago, but still rough enough to bite your fingers. You wedge your hands beneath one and lift, knees bent. The weight is impressive. Not theatrical. Just unrelenting. Like it has somewhere to be, and you're just borrowing its motion for a bit. As you and your team start hauling, someone mentions that these particular stones are destined for a decorative parapet, an imperial segment. So we suffer for aesthetics today, they mutter. You grunt in response, which, here, passes for agreement. Halfway up the slope, one of the men slips. The stone clatters free, tumbling down a few meters before coming to rest against a shrub. No one curses. There's no drama. Just quiet acknowledgement. You all shuffle down, lift again, and carry on. Historians still argue whether the workers on the Great Wall were truly conscripts, criminals, or volunteers seeking a better future. The truth, of course, lies in all of it, and in none of it. Out here, no one wears a sign explaining their reasons. You don't ask. You just know this: everyone has a past they'd rather forget or a future they can't quite imagine. By mid-morning, your arms feel like they're being gently chewed on by ghosts. The stones are stacked in neat rows now, awaiting placement. You run your hand over the topmost one, tracing a small fossil embedded in its surface. It looks like a leaf, caught forever in the stone's memory. You imagine the tree it once belonged to. Long before any emperor had a dream about walls, lunch is a thinner porridge than usual. You sip it slowly, grateful for its warmth even if it tastes like overcooked patience. Around you, conversations ripple in low tones. Someone's asking if anyone's seen the herbalist. Someone else says their cousin once claimed to walk along the entire wall, on a dare. No one believes him, but the lie is enjoyed. You volunteer for mortar mixing after the break. It's less glamorous than hauling stone, which is saying something. You kneel beside a wide clay basin and begin to stir. The mix is thick, gritty, and smells faintly of vinegar and wet clay. You fold in water slowly, carefully. The wrong consistency means a stone might slip loose a decade from now, or tomorrow. You recall a supervisor saying, "Mortar is the wall's blood. Keep it too thin, and it bleeds away. Too thick, and it chokes." You aren't sure if that was wisdom or just a man trying to sound impressive while holding a ladle. Still, it stuck. As you stir, a beetle crawls across your foot. You watch it for a while, admiring its persistence. It knows where it's going. Probably. That puts it ahead of you. The workers laying stone call for more mortar. You hoist a bucket and trudge to the scaffold. The platform creaks beneath you, a patchwork of salvaged beams and wishful thinking. You pour the mortar into their waiting troughs. One of the masons nods, eyes shaded under his woven hat. You nod back. Your relationship is built on 5-word exchanges and the occasional shared plum. The rest of the afternoon passes in a haze of motion: mix, lift, pour, return. The mortar dries fast under the sun. A gust of wind occasionally throws fine dust into your face, which you blink away with mild irritation and no drama. You've long since stopped caring whether your skin is clean. Dirt is the only thing that never leaves. By evening, the stones you helped carry are in place. They sit in a neat row, like soldiers at parade rest. No one compliments your work, but you feel a quiet pride anyway. That's the only kind you can trust out here. As the sun begins to fall behind the hills, casting long shadows that stretch like old bones across the camp, you find yourself once again near the fire. The flute is out again. The same tune. Or maybe a different one, just as soft, just as slow. You sip a bowl of warm barley broth and listen. Someone asks if you think the wall will ever be finished. You shrug. That's not your problem. Your job isn't to imagine endings. Just to make sure this section doesn't fall apart before the next shift starts. The stars come out, one by one. Some blink, others burn steady. You watch them until your eyes blur, then, bed. Or the suggestion of one. You lie down, curl one arm under your head, and let your thoughts scatter. Somewhere far away, another stone is being cut. You'll meet it soon. Maybe carry it on your back. Maybe set it in place. Maybe dream about it, it doesn't matter. The wall remembers all of you. The air is cooler tonight, enough that you draw your thin blanket tighter over your shoulders as you wake. The wind rustles across the ridge above, whistling between the crags, low and constant like a mountain breathing in its sleep. You sit up, bones complaining. Everything aches. Even your earlobes feel tired. But your limbs remember the rhythm now, and before long you're standing again, stretching with slow resignation. A call echoes across camp. Not urgent, but not optional. You join the line of workers gathering near the edge of the site, where the overseer is pointing toward the forested slope below. A supply convoy has gone off course during the night. 3 wagons were due before sunrise. 1 arrived. The others, according to the runner who brought the message, may be bogged down in mud or, more likely, lost among the tangled paths. You're selected for the recovery crew. Why? Because you're still standing, and you didn't fake a limp fast enough, so you pack quickly, a few dried plums, some rice wrapped in leaves, and a gourd of brackish water. A guide leads the way, a quiet man with a long stick and longer silences. The descent is steep. Loose shale crunches underfoot. Birds call from the trees in languages you don't speak. Everything smells faintly green and deeply alive, a sharp contrast to the dry stone world you've grown used to, after an hour of trudging through switchbacks and dodging tree roots. You hear a distant shout. Then the low groan of a wagon axle being coaxed back into position. The convoy's lead cart is stuck in a patch of sunken ground, the wheels buried up to the hubs in wet clay. 2 oxen strain against their harnesses, grunting with quiet misery. You and the others begin clearing them up. Stones, sticks, anything that can give traction. A few men use planks as levers. You slip once, planting your hand in the mud. You wipe it off on your tunic. No one laughs. Everyone is too focused, too tired. Eventually, the wagon groans free. Its wheels turn reluctantly, like waking from a bad dream. The driver nods to your group with a grateful look, then clicks his tongue at the oxen. The cart lurches forward, and the other missing wagon rolls in behind it, their contents mercifully intact: grain sacks, rope, some cloth bundles marked with the imperial seal. You pause for a moment near the edge of a low stream, splashing your face with the cold water. It bites your skin, but refreshes something deeper. You see small fish dart beneath the surface, unconcerned by the grand human projects just a ridge away. As you begin the climb back up, the conversation among your group turns to food. Not today's rations, but imaginary feasts. Someone describes a wedding meal they once had: wild duck in plum sauce, rice cakes shaped like lotus flowers. Another recalls stealing a fried turnip bun from a market stall, only to share it with a friend out of guilt. The stories are told not to impress, but to remember a time when meals had more taste and fewer rocks in your teeth. Near the summit, you stop to catch your breath. The wall is visible now, stretched like a stone ribbon along the ridge. From this angle, it looks impossibly graceful, like it belongs to the landscape rather than interrupting it. You feel oddly proud, like pointing at a child and saying, "That's mine," even though it's also everyone else's. Back at camp, the wagons are unloaded quickly. A new load of lime powder spills from a torn sack. You cover your mouth to avoid breathing it in. One man isn't fast enough and starts coughing, a dry, rattling sound. He waves it off. Nothing serious, he croaks, but his eyes water as he walks away. Lunch is cold rice and turnip stems. You eat it gratefully, barely tasting it. The conversation is lighter now. One man suggests teaching the oxen how to stack bricks. Another claims the emperor once disguised himself as a worker to see the wall up close. He only lasted an hour, someone chuckles. No one knows if the story is true, but it feels true enough to repeat. Later in the afternoon, you're sent to assist the wood crew. A section of the wall will need scaffolding tomorrow, and the beams must be trimmed to size. The saw is old and reluctant. You work in pairs, one pulling, one guiding. The scent of cut pine fills the air, sharp and clean. You like this part, oddly enough. There's a rhythm to it. A kind of partnership between you and the tree's memory. You can almost forget how heavy everything is. As the sun begins to dip again, you help drag the trimmed beams up the path. Each one is awkward, more than heavy. You find yourself talking to the wood, softly. "Don't shift," you whisper. "We're almost there." Another man hears you and grins. "They listen better than the supervisors," he says. "Dinner comes later than usual. The cook has received fresh onions. The soup has flavor tonight." You all notice, but no one says much, just an extra chew here, a slower sip there. Gratitude doesn't need words. As darkness falls, a breeze picks up. It whistles along the wall's edge like a flute with too many holes. You lie down, hands behind your head, and watch the sky. Clouds drift lazily past a half moon. You think about the oxen, the fish in the stream, the fossil in the brick, then you think about nothing. Which is exactly what you needed. Morning greets you not with a roar but a soft sigh, the kind that slips through the cracks of the wall and settles in your bones. You roll out of your thin bedding and feel the familiar stiffness of limbs still adjusting to the day's demands. Around you, the camp stirs slowly. Lanterns are extinguished with quiet flickers, sleepy voices hum a gentle chorus that blends with the distant crow of a rooster or maybe a wild bird echoing your fatigue. Today's task is bricklaying, a steady, repetitive labor that demands patience and a delicate touch, more so than hauling or chopping. You walk over to the stone platform, where the mason's tools rest like silent promises, wooden mallets, chisels dulled from use, and buckets of mixed mortar glistening under the pale dawn. Your hands itch to get started, even though you know every stone will test your resolve. The master mason appears, an older man with skin like weathered parchment and eyes sharp as flint. He nods at you once, brief, no need for pleasantries. You kneel beside him, and he guides your hands to the mortar and bricks, showing you how to spread just enough to hold the stones but not so much that it oozes over the edges. The precision seems minor, but it makes all the difference between a lasting wall and one that crumbles in a season. You settle into the rhythm, dab mortar, place brick, tap gently with the mallet. The task is soothing in its monotony, and your thoughts begin to wander as your muscles learn the pattern. You imagine yourself as the wall itself, slowly building, layer by layer, a barrier not just of stone but of stories, memories, and forgotten hands. Nearby, the chatter among workers is low, with occasional bursts of laughter when someone botches a brick or drops a tool. You smile softly. Even here, humor finds a way to sneak in, like a small breeze through a cracked window. During a brief pause, you glance at the horizon, where clouds hover like ancient guardians watching over the endless wall. You think about the men and women who came before you, their own hands pressing bricks, their own silent hope set into the mortar. Some historians still debate how much of this work was voluntary, how much was punishment, and how much simply survival. But out here, those debates dissolve into the dust. Mid-afternoon brings a welcome break. You sit on a sun-warmed stone, pulling out your small bundle of food, some dry millet cakes and pickled vegetables. The taste is bland but familiar. You chew slowly, savoring the pause in movement. Nearby, a fellow worker pulls out a carved wooden flute and begins to play a soft, meandering tune. The melody blends with the whispering wind, a lullaby for tired bones. Back to work. The bricks begin to stack higher, the wall's silhouette sharpening against the sky. Your fingers are rough and cracked, but each stroke feels purposeful, a small victory over the relentless weight of the task. As evening descends, the shadows grow long and cool. The campfire's glow flickers, casting dancing shapes on the tent flaps. The same flute melody returns, and you settle down with a sense of quiet accomplishment. Despite the endless toil, there is a strange peace in contributing to something so enduring, something that outlasts you. You let your eyes drift closed, the sounds of the wall and the night weaving into your dreams, soft, steady, and unbroken. Dawn edges in with a pale blush, casting soft light across the scattered tools and tents. You awaken to the distant murmur of voices, the low hum of life stirring along the wall's length. The cold night has passed, but the chill clings to your bones, reminding you that winter's touch will soon arrive. Today's work calls for brick preparation, a task as crucial as it is unglamorous. You head to the clay pit, a dusty hollow where earth has been dug and sifted for weeks. Here, the clay is mixed with water and straw to create the perfect consistency, firm but pliable. You scoop handfuls of the sticky mud, feeling it cling to your fingers like a stubborn companion. The process requires patience. Too dry and the bricks crumble, too wet and they collapse under their own weight. You watch a craftsman deftly press the clay into wooden molds, each brick shaped to exact specifications before being laid out in neat rows to dry under the sun. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and faint straw, a grounding aroma that reminds you of fields long past and harvests you'll never see. Nearby, a group of women shape the softer clay, their hands nimble and practiced. Their presence here, subtle yet vital, hints at the often overlooked roles in this grand project. You catch a glimpse of a mother balancing her youngest child on her hip while working. The child's wide eyes absorb the strange world of stones and labor. Already part of the endless rhythm, as the day unfolds, the clay dries slowly, and you find yourself pondering the delicate balance between nature and human endeavor. The wall is not just stone and mortar, it's earth transformed, earth borrowed from far-off places and reshaped by countless hands. During a quiet moment, you hear a soft argument among workers about the best way to mix the straw. Some swear by longer strands for strength, others argue for finer cuts for smoother bricks. The debate feels less about bricks and more about tradition, how knowledge passes between generations. Often without words, you return to camp for a brief meal. The thin soup tastes of roots and thyme, and you savor the warmth it offers against the cooling air. Around you, others rest or mend worn clothes. The fabric is threadbare, patched with care. You wonder how many garments have traveled the length of the wall with their owners, bearing the marks of this shared journey. In the afternoon, a messenger arrives with news from the nearby village. A new shipment of silk has arrived, a rare luxury, whispered about but seldom seen here. The silk is destined for the imperial courts, far beyond your reach, but the thought of its smooth texture sparks a fleeting dream of softness amid the roughness. As evening falls, you help prepare the tools for the next day. The camp grows quieter, each person retreating into their small tent or against a wall for rest. The sky darkens, stars punctuating the velvet night. You lie back, feeling the earth beneath you, the lingering scent of clay still clinging to your skin. The wall stretches endlessly in your mind's eye, an eternal monument to endurance. To human persistence, your eyelids grow heavy. The world softens. You drift into a sleep where the clay and stone melt, and the wall becomes a quiet heartbeat beneath the moon's gentle gaze. Morning returns quietly, pulling you from sleep with the gentle light of dawn stretching over the ridge. Today, your role shifts to supporting the water carriers, a task that at first seems simple but soon reveals itself to be its own kind of challenge. Water is life here, but it's also heavy, precious, and unforgiving. You find the clay jars waiting by the well, their curved bodies glazed smooth and cool. Each will be filled, balanced, and transported along a winding path back to the wall site. The thought of carrying water might sound easy, but the jostling jars can break if you're careless. You learn quickly how to cradle the vessel against your hip, keeping your steps steady. Your breaths measured. The well itself is an ancient structure, dug deep into the earth and lined with stones smoothed by countless hands. The water tastes faintly metallic, with a mineral bite that wakes your senses. You fill your jar slowly, careful not to spill a drop, then hoist it onto your shoulder. The weight is immediate, solid and unyielding, a reminder that even the smallest task demands respect. The path back is narrow and steep, a twisting ribbon that snakes alongside the wall. You meet other carriers along the way, each with their own burden, their own rhythm. There's a quiet camaraderie in the shared struggle, a nod here, a soft word there, enough to remind you you're not alone. Along the way, you pass groups of workers taking breaks, some nursing sore backs, others staring off into the distance as if willing the day to move faster. A few small birds dart through the trees, their calls sharp against the heavy silence. Historians still argue whether these water systems were engineered solely for the wall's construction or if they also served nearby settlements in a more permanent way. Either way, you feel the ancient ingenuity coursing through every stone and every drop you carry. Once you reach the upper camp, the water is poured carefully into larger reservoirs, to be used for mixing mortar or drinking. The process feels ritualistic, almost sacred in its importance. A single broken jar would mean days of delay. The afternoon brings a change in pace. You join a small group tasked with sorting tools, chisels, hammers, saws, each worn from months of use. The men joke quietly about the latest mishap when a hammerhead flew off and nearly took out a supervisor's hat. The humor lightens the day's toil, a welcome balm. As the sun lowers, you watch the shadow of the wall stretch across the landscape, darkening the valleys below. The sheer length of it is almost overwhelming, an unending testament to human effort. Back at your tent, you rinse your hands in cool water, savoring the brief sensation of cleanliness before night falls again. The rhythmic whistle of the wind through the battlements is like a lullaby, steady and soothing. You settle in, muscles relaxed, mind wandering to the flow of water you carried, the endless stones you helped set. The wall is no longer just a barrier, it's a living story, and you are one of its quiet narrators. Your eyes close slowly, and the world narrows to the soft sound of breathing and the gentle hum of the night. You stand at the edge of the newly finished rampart as dusk settles into deep indigo, the air cool against your sweat-slicked skin. Tonight is the final night watch for this crew, a rotation that stretches hours like taffy until the horizon blurs into a single, obsidian line. You grip your lantern and step onto the stone walkway, toes curling over the rough edge, feeling the world shift beneath your boots. Your partner for the night is the young runner who announced yesterday's tasks. He's lean and restless, flicking his eyes from the inky valley below to the flickering firelight in nearby watchtowers. He doesn't speak much. Night watches rarely invite chatter, but when he does, his voice is low and carries just enough warmth to remind you that the wall isn't completely indifferent. Together, you pace the length of your assigned segment. Each footfall echoes softly against the battlements, mingling with distant animal calls and the whisper of wind through the crenellations. Below, lanterns glow like fireflies in the courtyards and tents. Above, the first stars glitter in patterns you've come to know well, the ox, the bird, the river. They guide you as reliably as any beacon tower. You pause at the southern tower, raising the lantern to peer inside. The mortar here still smells fresh, a subtle tang of lime and earth reminding you of afternoons spent kneeling beside the basins. You trace a finger along the rough seam where two bricks meet. It's solid, no hollow spots. Your chest lifts slightly, a quiet pride swelling up. Historians still argue whether nightly rotations lasted uninterrupted through the darkest hours or if laborers added secret doses between patrols. Either way, you're determined to stay alert. A single missed signal could mean disaster if trouble ever approached. But as you listen, all you hear is the wall's own breath, a soft, constant susurration as the stones settle into night. Your fellow guard signals with a brief whistle. You respond with the click of your tongue, the agreed code for all clear. It's a small ritual that comforts you more than the lantern's glow. You both understand the gravity of emptiness, of vigilance without enemy, and there's something reassuring in the shared silence. The wall's history presses in here. You imagine the generations of watchers before you, some conscripts, some volunteers, all bound to this stone spine. Many perished in harsh winters or fell prey to raiders beyond these ramparts. Others slipped into sleep and never woke. You wonder at the weight they carried, and somehow, you feel the burden ease when you know they stood where you stand. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of pine and distant cooking fires. You inhale deeply, letting the aroma anchor you. In the glow of your lantern, the carved fish you spotted weeks ago flickers into view, a small, ancient etching someone pressed here long ago. You touch it gently, as if greeting an old friend. Its edges are soft from centuries of hand-worn rubbing, but it still holds a story. Halfway through the watch, you adjust the lantern wick, careful not to douse the flame. The light dances against the stones, revealing tiny patches of moss and spider webs glistening like morning dew. It strikes you how this wall doesn't just hold back enemies, it harbors life in its cracks. From lichen to lizards to hidden nests, your partner shifts, the lantern light catching the gleam in his eyes. Ever wonder what happens when the wall sleeps? He asks, voice hushed. You smile against the dark. I think it dreams, you reply. Of the people it's carried, of the voices it's heard. He nods and resumes his pace, the soft slap of sandals on stone resuming its hypnotic cadence. As midnight deepens, the watch continues in measured cycles, footsteps tracing ancient paths. You feel time slow, becoming elastic and soft, just like the mortars you mixed at dawn. Every shadow, every flicker of movement beyond the ramparts, pricks your senses. But mostly, there's only the steady pulse of your own heartbeat and the wall's silent solidarity. The final hour arrives without fanfare. You stand at the edge of the tower, lantern held at chest height, and watch the horizon shimmer with the faint promise of dawn. The first hint of pale azure grazes the sky, like a whisper of hope. Your partner straightens and offers you a curt salute. You return it, the gesture light but full of respect. The watch concludes, not with trumpets or applause, but with a quiet exchange of nods. You hand off the lantern and step aside, your feet heavy but unburdened. You've kept the vigil. You've honored the wall's memory, its makers, its guardians. You descend the stone steps, each one worn smooth by countless boots. At the bottom, the camp stirs, some rising for breakfast, others still curled under blankets. The cycle begins anew. The wall's vigil ends not with a grand farewell but with a soft exhale, the stones releasing centuries of tension in a single, collective sigh. You lie back on your mat, still feeling the firm imprint of stone beneath your shoulders, as your heartbeat slows to match the wall's gentle rhythm. The night air grows tender, like the final notes of a lullaby fading into silence. In this quiet, the world seems to soften. The once rough mortar feels smooth under your fingers in memory, the distant drumbeats of labor become a muted heartbeat, and the cold metal of your chisel transforms into a mere whisper at your side. The sky above is blurring from indigo to soft gray, hinting at dawn's approach without urgency or fanfare. Allow each breath to deepen, filling your lungs with the cool scent of pine and earth. Feel the weight of the day lift from your limbs as the wall's steadfast presence surrounds you, a silent promise that even when you rest, your contribution endures. Every stone you carry, every block you set, has become part of something vast and timeless. Let the memories of morning yokes, midday mortar, and evening watches drift into the background, replaced by the simple act of being. No longer strained by weight or schedule, your muscles unwind, and your thoughts grow still. The wall sleeps now too, its ramparts softened by the hush of twilight. As your eyelids grow heavy, imagine the subtle glow of lantern light fading from memory. The echo of footsteps dissolving into the dawn mist. The gentle hum of wine through the crenellations becomes a distant melody, lulling you deeper into calm. Rest here, in the embrace of stones shaped by countless hands, and let the world slip away. The wall remembers you. Now, it's your turn to be remembered by peace.